Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. Today we're talking about the Batman Part 2 specifically, and it looks like that movie is not going to be coming here anytime soon. They have delayed it to 2026, and boy, I have some questions. I've been dealing with a bit of a sore throat lately, but I've mustered up the energy here to rant a little bit, and I fully intend to do so because after watching the first Batman movie, I was like,
Mhm.
give me more now." And for some reason, Matt Reeves does not share the same concern, the same, what shall we say, enthusiasm. So, I'm worried. I'm worried that, why did this movie get pushed by an entire year? Why did we find out about it now? And what does that mean? Because I mean, hey, look, on one hand, you got James Gunn, he's got Superman Legacy, Peacemaker season 2, he's shepherding an entire freaking cinematic universe, and on the other hand, you've got, Matt Reeves. He can't even get the second movie off the ground. He's too busy working on sequels and spin-offs and projects that aren't even a part of his universe. I mean, I don't know. That's just my opinion, but I'm not the only one here who's gonna provide an opinion. So let's talk to John. John, how are you doing today?
I think we're gonna be a Batman versus Superman type of thing here because I don't really show that same sentiment in terms of Batman getting delayed. Um, because mainly, well, first, I think I didn't love the Batman as much as everybody else did. I think I definitely hyped myself up when I shouldn't have. I was just way too excited.
How dare you, sir?
And it ended up kind of being a little bit disappointing. I just don't think it should have been 3 hours long. It shouldn't. I felt
Was it
like
3
even
hours long? I don't know what.
it was 3
Wait, what are
hours
we talking about?
long.
We're talking about BVS or the Batman? Because I
No,
don't think the
Batman
Bat.
part. I was saying like because
Okay,
like you versus me because we share different. Sorry if that was confusing. I didn't
I'm
mean
just
for
trying
it
to
to be
figure
like
out.
that.
Yeah.
My bad. Um, but yeah, the Batman was 3 hours long. Even though it was like, oh, this is Batman finally being a detective, and he's a terrible fucking detective. And then like not knowing like the Spanish word for rat versus bat. It's like, come on now. But yeah, it's just
What
like a
was it? What
lot of
was la it's
la
La Rata,
la
not El
rata
Rat.
instead of el
It's
rata or
with
whatever the
his
fuck
New
it was.
Jersey accent, I can never get enough of that scene.
And then like the third act was just like I'm gonna flood Gotham because reasons.
I mean,
And then on top of that, a lot of people actually did mention that like the character of the Riddler doesn't feel like the Riddler, and not because of like, oh, he's just the Zodiac killer wearing green, but he's like inherently like down to like the core of the character. Like he resembles more the Mad Hatter than the Riddler. The Riddler isn't trying to be Batman's equal, he's trying to be better than Batman. He doesn't want to see eye to eye, while Mad Hatter more so fits that like core of that character. While, the whole point of the Riddler is that he's, egotistical. He wants to constantly be the best, to be better. He doesn't see Batman as his equal. He sees Batman as his like underling. And the fact that like the Riddler here is more, is like equal. I understand there's like different interpretations of the character, but there's also the like certain
yeah.
type of core that you need to have to like, that's what, can't believe I'm going to say this, but that's what the Jim Carrey one kind of got. Even though that's a very flawed performance, that's a very flawed version of the Riddler. They did get like the reason that he like became the way he was because he was egotistical. Like he wanted, like when Bruce is like, it just raises too many questions. He's like, no, obviously I know fucking better than you because I created this and blah 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 and all that shit. So yeah, say what you will about Jim Carrey's Riddler, and I know I have in the past many a time, but like at least that kind of weirdly got the character, even though eventually he just became a discount Frank Gorshin, which less said about that the better. But like kind of like in the beginning, before he actually became the Riddler, he had that core. So that was like kind of the main thing about the Batman. Now, in terms of the delay, I try not to get too mad about delays because I feel more often than not, a lot of people get like, oh, it's delayed. What are you talking about? It's delayed. Like, what do you mean? Like, I want it yesterday. What are you talking about? But it's like,
I'm
he needs to work. Like, he needs time.
Look,
Like,
I get that.
this
I
is
do.
he wants to make his Empire Strikes Back. He wants to make a movie that is even better than the first one. He wants to put every single, and you know how you're your own worst critic. Like, he's gonna submit 17 different drafts, and he's like, "Oh my god, this is the worst work I've done ever. I need to do it again. I need to start from scratch again." Like, yeah, I can guarantee you, as someone who writes constantly, I am exactly like that, and I feel like I'm writing the worst thing since cancer, but yet it's fine, but we don't view it as fine. So it's like there's a whole thing. And then on top of that, maybe he has writer's block. So I don't know. I just feel like just let the man cook. I feel like I need to just let the man be his creative vision while also maybe dealing with some sort of insecurity in terms of writing. Because as a fellow writer, I get that. So I don't want to blame him too hard. Like I know the delay sucks because we all want to see the sequel and we all love these characters. We all as long as Michael Giacchino comes back, I'm gonna be first in line for this goddamn movie. But I just feel like I feel like delays don't automatically mean bad because look at Across the Spider Verse that got delayed and that turned
Right,
out to be really good. Sonic the
there's
Hedgehog
also
got
the
delayed
yeah.
and that turned out to be really good. So I don't know.
Yeah, right, right. But like also Sonic the Hedgehog's first trailer got like ripped apart and then they went and then completely changed the renders on the character, which
Exactly.
whether you believe that was on purpose or not, and then the dark side of the Spider-Verse movies is that, that's how we found out that VFX artists were basically sleeping at their desks and working 18-hour days and basically getting run into the ground, which is something that, a lot of people discount when talking about those movies, despite the fact that that exists. It's not that those are the only movies where that happens. It happens, especially in a lot of Marvel movies if you go by, all the VFX artists who unionized last year. But look, I'm not coming at it from a creative like, I understand as a writer, you go
I
through a
know.
lot of drafts. I myself, like, I can show you scripts that I'm on the 15th draft of a script, and, even then I might not. But the thing is, no, like, any good filmmaker will tell you, no script is like Ron Howard will tell you, Steve Spielberg will tell you, they'll all no script is ever truly done, right? Like, it's
Mhm.
you have to get it into production because you can always keep improving and making it better. I don't think I've ever made a project where I felt like the script was complete. It and then thing is, when you take it into production, then changes will happen along the way. And this isn't anything that, of course, Matt Reeves needs to be told. The dude is way more successful than either of us, and so he knows all about this. Now, with that being said, where I get concerned is this. This is I hinted at this at the beginning. On one hand, you've got James Gunn there, who pitched his Superman project after the Batman Part 2 was already greenlit, because the Batman Part 2 got the green light as basically once the first movie blew up. So, but that
Mhm.
was before James Gunn was hired on to become the whole, co-CEO of the DCU. And I'm sure part of his pitch included some elements of a script or maybe an outline. But then he has been working on that script since, and he is still on track to meet his release date of 2026 June, or is it July? I think is it July 2026. So on one
I
hand,
think
you've got James Gunn doing.
I
Is
think
it
it was
June?
exactly 1 year. I think it
When
was October for the Batman
Well, right,
2026.
but I'm talking about Superman right now, right? Like,
Okay,
James
Superman,
Gunn has
Superman.
got Superman on track for 2025. He also finished an entire season's worth of scripts for Peacemaker, and now the second season of Peacemaker is going to be filming simultaneously and will come out in 2025. And he's overseeing, Creature Commandos and everything else that's going on in the DCU. And on the other hand, you've got, like, but like, and here's the thing: Matt Reeves is also doing a lot of things you might be saying is kind of they're in the same boat, because Matt Reeves has got the Penguin show that he's an executive producer on, which I don't know how involved he is particularly, but it's a spinoff of the Batman, so it makes sense that he's going to be involved in some way. Then he's also got that Arkham show that he's developing for the DCU, not even the universe that he's primarily focused on. And then supposedly there's a GCPD show still in development, and of course you've got the Batman Part 2, not to mention the Batman Cape Crusader animated series that he's
Mhm.
also an executive producer on, which is now on Amazon Prime. So you've got Matt Reeves also focusing on 500 different projects, but James Gunn is making sure, above all else, Superman makes it to screen on time. and he was incredibly thankful publicly, saying, "Hey, we are so glad that everything is on track, and despite the strikes and everything else, we have been able to keep doing the work that we could do to keep getting to make this movie, the movie's release date." And here we are. I don't give two shits about the Penguin and the spin-off like GCPD show or the Arkham show or any like Batman animated series. If you can't like give me the Batman part 2 one time, then like none of that other shit matters. Like you gotta like fucking, because to me that's like you're losing the plot. Like Christopher Nolan made Batman Begins, then made The Prestige, and then came back and made The Dark Knight, and then in between The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, he went and made freaking Inception. Like now we're gonna have like 4 years gap between the Batman and the Batman Part Two. And has Matt Reeves put out in that meantime? Because unless I'm not aware of something that he's been working on directing, he would have no other movie that came out in between that time. And the only thing at this point that will be guaranteed to come out between that time that he's got his hands on is the Batman animated show, where he's probably just very loosely connected, and then the Penguin show where he's just executive producing. He's not the showrunner of that Penguin show, unlike James Gunn, who show ran the first season of Peacemaker. So like what the heck is he up to? Because here's the thing, I start to get concerned that Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams come from the same school of thought in a lot of ways. And if J.J. Abrams' career is anything to go by, and I'm not saying Matt Reeves is that person whatsoever, considering what he's done with the Planet of the Apes franchise, I start to get worried. I'm like, is this second movie gonna, not be as good as the first? Is it just gonna take us down the wrong direction? Because let's be honest, the first two Batman movies with Michael Keaton were fantastic, but then shit went sideways real fast. And since then, Batman basically as a character was shut down on screen for almost like a decade before Christopher Nolan said, "Hey, I want to take a shot at this guy," and then all of a sudden we got the Dark Knight trilogy. So I'm not saying it's going to be that bad, but I do start to get concerned because not only now is it going to interfere, not only does it now force us to wait an extra year for the Batman Part Two, but it's going to interfere with the plan for whatever they've got, in mind for Batman Brave and the Bold, which is another freaking Batman project where the director is focused on some other thing, the Welcome to Derry, and then because of that, we have no idea when Batman Brave and the Bold. So at this rate, we may not get another Batman project. Literally, the house DC is the house that Batman built. In case people don't know, DC stands for Detective Comics. The character that Detective Comics birth is Batman, and Batman is this single most profitable character in the history of comic books, and the one character
Most
that DC has been profiting on for a freaking century. Where the hell is the next Batman movie? At this point, you might as well give Ben Affleck the green light and be like, you know what, bring Joe Manganiello back, and let's just do a Ben Affleck Batman movie. We'll make it an Elseworlds film. You've got a completed script. It's better than the other two guys. So might as well let the money set aside. Let's get this up and running, because that's where I'm at. And I know that sounds a little crazy and over the top. I get it. Like for all we know, the Batman Part 2 is going to be amazing. Like you said, it's going to be like the second Spider-Verse movie, whatever. But I'm just saying that there are signs, that would lead one to be concerned, and I happen to be one of those people that are concerned. Um, I mean, that's all I've got to say about that. I mean, I don't know. It's worrying.
I don't know. I just feel like, well, one, I feel like Superman is the house that, or DC, Superman is the house that DC built, or whatever the fuck however the fuck the saying goes.
Hey,
And technically, Spider-Man is the most profitable superhero of all time, but that's being technical. However, I
yeah,
don't
I
know. It's
mean,
just like maybe I'm just kind of blanket about it, because it's like
all I'll
I think
say
it's
is
just
you're barking up the wrong tree, dude. I'm just,
I just feel like I don't know, because like I don't know, fucking let Superman shine. Batman has owned everything from like 1989 to fucking 20 something, like fucking 2022. All right, Batman has been like on screen for all that time and like has owned it. And then Superman barely gets the like the spark it needs, and then we're finally getting good Superman projects like consistently, like Batman did back in like the early fucking like 90s. So it's like, all right, cool, we're actually getting this shit. So it's like, you know what? Maybe Batman deserves a fucking rest. You know, like maybe Batman just like, you know what?
I'm dude,
Batman
you
needs
know,
a
you don't
rest,
wanna yeah.
and just let him, take a break. Let him take a break, and then he'll come back better than ever. Like he just needs a good nap. I think he's tired. He needs a good nap, and I think Superman's got it from here. You know,
Yeah, well,
I
okay,
feel like that's
sure.
the case.
Yeah. Superman, the character that's, last, solo movie made, what is it? A fraction of what well, not a fraction, I shouldn't say. It made let's just say it made the last Superman movie that made more money than a Batman movie was Never. So, just saying. But, I we're on the same team, so let's not go down that path. We're not trying to, like, hype up Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. We're talking about The Batman Part 2, and then we'll be talking about Superman at some point in the conversation. Um, can I just so let me just ask a follow-up question then. What do you think is actually going on here? Why the delay? Because like I put, the article that I had up earlier. So here's the one from the Hollywood Reporter, right? Warner Brothers made a few different shifts. It includes Paul Thomas Anderson event film, which is going to be starring Leonardo DiCaprio. That's now coming out in late 2025, which I don't believe had a release date before. And the Batman Part 2 literally got pushed basically an exact year from October 2025 to 2026. It does worry me that now, the internet has talked all about this, is that Christian Bale was younger in The Dark Knight Rises than Robert Pattinson's gonna be in the second Batman movie, and he supposedly is still like a year 2, year 3 Batman, so I'm not saying he looks like he is older than Christian. That's not the concern. What I do get worried about is, how does this movie then affect all the other projects? Because this is why the MCU has to run like an well-oiled machine. We do kind of blame it for like they have made it too formulaic, and that's partly where the creativity disappears. But I mentioned this recently on the channel that maybe going in the complete opposite direction with what James kinda suggested is not necessarily the best thing either. Like, you gotta have the balance that you can't just be like, "Oh, yes, take 10 years if you have to get it right." Like, you gotta, give yourself a deadline that you can then eventually meet. And I know that Zack Snyder got an extra year to work on BVS when that got delayed, but at the end of the day, then Warner Brothers, still kinda shot themselves in the foot by cutting 30 minutes out of the movie, so I hope that that kinda mistake doesn't happen, but what I do get worried about now is, there's a pattern that's emerging with this gets pushed, and I see that they blamed it on the whole writers' strike, and I'm like, "Okay, I get that." But, that writers' strike didn't happen until last summer. Matt Reeves had, the entirety of, time from 20 mid-2022 to the mid-20 like, a whole year to be working on this. I mean, is it just not big enough of a priority for him? Like, what's going on? Like, I just wanna know, what kind of insight can you gain from this announcement on Hollywood Reporter? And the fact that we haven't had any updates, and the last time Matt Reeves did share an update, it wasn't a very positive one. He was like, "Just wait," is basically what he said, which was months ago at this point, it might have been even a year ago. So, what is your thought process on why this delay,
I
other
don't
than
know.
the
I
writer's
just
block? Because I don't believe the writer's block issue thing, and
I don't
maybe
know.
it's
It's
part of it,
just
but I don't think that's all of it.
maybe I don't know. Maybe after kind of like what you know what it's gonna be a bet. It's gonna be a hopeful thing, but I'm gonna okay. What if? Now, hear me out before you get mad. Hear me out, okay? What if Matt Reeves takes the Star Wars approach, going back to the Empire Strikes Back comparison? What if he has the outline of all of these movies, his trilogy, saga, whatever he wants to do, but then he just lets other directors handle the 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 sequels. Maybe
I'm
the
fine with
Batman to
that.
him, maybe the Batman to him was like such like a grueling experience because sometimes that just happens. Sometimes it's just like,
Yeah. I
okay,
mean,
we
hey, Ben
got this
Affleck will
great
tell you.
movie, Star Wars,
Yeah.
was this fucking cultural phenomenon, but yet George Lucas is like, I'm ready to fucking blow my brains out right now. So he's like, Irvin Kushner, you take Empire Strikes Back. I'm not dealing with this shit. So, so there's that. So maybe there's the extra year. Again, this is just a theory, but maybe that extra year is to find other talent to take over the movie because Matt Reeves, maybe he does have all these projects and he still wants the Batman movies to be the best they can be. So he's like, you know what? Maybe kind of like what Ben Affleck did, even though the Batman eventually became so different from that original vision. Maybe he's like, you know what? Maybe I should step back, work on all these other projects myself, write the movie, maybe produce the movie. I don't know if he produced the first one, but produce the movie and then just let another director similar vibe just kind of take over. I feel maybe that's like an extra year trying to find talent, trying to like find some stuff, or maybe it's also an extra year so that James Gunn can get a proper handle on it, even though it's not a DCU project. Maybe he just needs that extra year. I don't know, or maybe he just needs an extra 6 months, and that the year is just an easier like gauge because remember it can be pushed like forward. Like it could come out in June. I don't know. But and
Well, I
that
mean, its
James Gunn
original
is
date
like,
is being taken up by, Christian Bale,
yeah.
the better Batman anyway.
So
So
maybe it like James Gunn, because this was greenlit before him, maybe he's like trying to get a handle on the production, trying to get a vibe for it. There's also that because there might be a whole bunch of behind the scenes hullabaloo that we aren't even aware of that James Gunn needs to like, okay, let's get this under wraps. So like I have like some sort of idea of like how to not control it. Control is the wrong word, but like just be like, okay, I need to like get the
shepherd
vibe of
it
what's
or
going
yeah.
on. And then maybe Matt Reeves is also looking for other talent so he can work on other projects, directing wise, write the script, maybe produce it, and then have someone else take the reins for directing. That could be a good theory in terms of the major year-long delay. Again, I want to be hopeful. I don't want to just assume that like this is going to be the worst thing ever. Like I don't want to think that. I never want to think that. So
I know.
that's again,
Nobody
that's the hopefulness. The hope. Maybe it's naivety, but that's the hopefulness in me.
yeah, nobody wants Mortal Kombat 2, again, so the less said about that, the better, but, look, it's the one thing that the article does say is that, Matt and Tomlin co-wrote or is co-writing this sequel, and he came on board the project, after it was announced at Comic-Con in April 2022, so it does look like, that's part of the reason that one of the because he's obviously part of the Writers Guild, and then they were shut down and not able to work on this for a good what was it, like 6 months almost?
Roughly.
But I still don't, like, I don't think that completely discounts the fact that they had a year before that to get their shit together, you know what I mean? Like, it's come on now, like, there's Tom Cruise has done, like, that what was that movie, Edge of Tomorrow? Like,
Hmm.
they didn't have a script when they started like, supposedly, they didn't even have a complete script when they started filming, and they just kinda, like, made shit up along the way, and they came out with a half a decent movie. I'm not saying do
Halfway. Yeah,
that,
it's a
obviously.
great movie, but that's just
It was
me.
a great movie. Well, yeah, I'm being understated,
Speaking of
but
sequels that are being delayed, when is that sequel gonna come out? I want to see a fucking Edge of Tomorrow sequel.
well, I know, right? Well, I mean, Tom Cruise signed the deal, like, he's gonna have an office on the Warner's lot, so, I mean, hopefully soon, hopefully. He's gotta go
Well,
to
maybe
space
Emily.
first, I
Hopefully,
guess.
Emily Blunt isn't too good for action
Yeah.
blockbusters after getting
No,
nominated for
she's
Oppenheimer.
no,
I
hey,
know.
look,
I know.
she's in The
She's
Fall
gonna be
Guy
in the
this
Fall
year,
Guy. No, I'm just. I know. I'm
and
just joking. I'm just
I
joking
mean,
around.
and then, which they were which was it Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt presented an award at the Oscars this year, clearly kind of like they're promoting the irony of how they were on opposite sides of the aisle last year, but now they're going to be in the same movie. But all that
Mhm.
anyway, Emily Blunt has said that she's looking forward to the sequel on when she's been asked about it. But getting back to the Batman Part Two, I mean, it sort of just puts a whole damper on the idea that we were asking questions like, "Oh, Barry Keoghan, Joker coming back. Who's the villain?" Now, I mean, like, now we gotta, like, sit here because think about it. It was al if it was gonna come out in October 2025, that was already going to be a good year and a half at the bare minimum, and now what we're talking about is 2 years and a half. Like, it's almost freaking 3 years away at this point. Um that's a long time. Dude,
It's
that's
a
a
very
long
long
time.
time.
I know it's
I
still
know.
gonna come it's gonna be like, The Dark Knight and Batman Begins were like 3.5 years apart, if I remember. and The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises were like 4 years apart, like 2008, 2012, like both came out in the summer months. And this movie now, because like the Batman came out in like March, you said, right? Like March of 2022.
Yeah.
So by the time October 2026 hits, it's gonna have been 4.5 years, more than that even. For a I mean, look, I just that's my thing is I like put all that other shit to the side. Like if making the Penguin series, if working on like 3 other spin-off shows, one of which is not even part of the Reeves verse, and
Right.
working on an animated show is taking away from you being able to work on the sequel to the biggest, Batman movie that we have gotten in a long solo Batman movie that we have gotten since The Dark Knight Rises,
Decade. Yeah.
like focus on that in a decade. Like you just focus on the sequel first. Like that should be the priority. I mean, look, I'm just saying it doesn't feel like it's writer's block because and the other thing is it does this kind of a release date shuffle doesn't happen overnight. They must have been working on this like people on the inside probably knew this was coming for a while, and for us on the outside
Yeah.
looking in, we knew this was coming. Like you sent me this story and we're like, no shit, and I'm like, yeah, duh, because
Because
there
we're like,
haven't been
where the
any
fuck?
updates.
Where is it? Where is it?
Right. Like, where are any updates? Because quite frankly, like, unlike Superman Legacy, which is meant to come out next summer, which is in production, Fantastic Four, we know is going into production soon and is coming out next year, literally a couple of weeks after Superman.
Mm-hmm.
The Batman, I know is coming out in October or was supposed to be coming out in October next year. We had zero updates, zero. And that's the other
The
thing that's
most
concerning.
was Jeffrey Wright. Yeah, that was it.
Right.
He's like, I
And I mean,
haven't
I
gotten
guess
a
he
script. The biggest update is like, I haven't gotten the blueprint of this fucking movie yet.
exactly, which I guess now we know why, because it doesn't exist apparently. So, which
Yeah.
is concerning. It's concerning for sure. I'm like, come on, like I'm serious. There's a part of me that's very serious when I say if what's his face? The guy who made the Flash.
Andy Muschietti.
If Andy Muschietti is not interested enough to prioritize the Batman Brave and the Bold, and if Matt Reeves' supposed writer's block is too hard to get over, then just bring in Ben Affleck. I mean, the dude is on a roll right
I
now.
would say bring in Neil Marshall. I think he could do it. That would be awesome.
Dude, when I say bring in Ben Affleck, I'm like, be like, hey Ben, that script that you had that was being called one of the best Batman scripts of all time, like just do it, like just come and do it. James Gunn could just give him a call. Like he clearly wants to collab. He supposedly wanted to
He
collaborate with
wouldn't.
him.
I don't think he would.
Um,
He's just
come
done.
on,
He's like
he could direct
like
the.
after the like well he was bro while he was like doing Batman, he got divorced, he went back to drinking, and
I
he went
know,
back to
dude,
smoking. I
but
don't
but
think he
but
ever
he's
wants to be
also
near Batman
But he's
again.
also come full circle. Like he did the whole thing in Flat. I mean, dude. Ben Affleck is living his best life right now, right? Like he could be on the set, all perched back, and be like, all right, background, okay, actors, and then like he's chewing on his Dunkings Munchkin skewer, and then like all of a sudden like action, and then just while he's munching on those, like people are acting and like it's just that could be. I can imagine that. I can see that. Like Joe Manganiello is still in probably really good shape, so I can totally see that. We can get on. I mean, and for all I care, just bring back Jesse Eisenberg's bald head Lex Luthor again. Like, why not? Let's
I
just do
actually
an
don't mind Jesse
Elseworlds
Eisenberg,
Batman
but I don't
movie.
think people would want to see that.
So they should do that just to like mess with people. Like put him in the trailer, but then take him out because one of those things that they did in the
Yeah,
Avengers trailers.
do like what they did with Madam Web. My mother was in the Amazon and blah 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 blah, but not have it actually be in the movie.
Movie, nothing at all. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I know we're having fun with this, but like honestly, it is definitely gonna be hard to wait till 2026. Because think about it, 2026, I think we're still meant to get like the first of those next two Avengers movies in 2026. So
Mm.
it's a long time from now, man. Like, I mean, I'm sure time will fly eventually. We will be ready to watch it when it comes out. But I, for one, hope that they will eventually move it back to maybe the spring or summer months of 2026. Um, because like, dude, it's a 2.5 year wait from today, and it's already been like 2 years since the first movie came out. So it's a long time. Like, and yes, I mean, none of these actors are terribly old, or they look like they're gonna get much older. But for a
Yeah, they're
franchise
doing like
that was
death.
intended
Yeah.
Right, but, like, for a franchise where, like, after the first movie, people were, like, thinking, "Oh, we're not just gonna do trilogy. That's maybe just the beginning." Like, we're talking maybe 5, 6 movies with Robert Pattinson. I'm like, when you now have a 4.5-year gap between movie 1 and 2, that starts to put into doubt the idea of, like, will Robert Pattinson wanna come back for a 3rd movie? I know he has a contract for it, so I guess he's contractually obliged, but, like, if the writer's block
It's
is this
always
bad for
different.
the 2nd movie, I wonder, like, what we're gonna be by the time the 3rd movie is set to come out, you know? So
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. Well, I guess we'll see where things take us. The Batman part 1 or the Batman, if I don't know, I guess this is not a Star Wars kind of situation, is on Max and Netflix, and I guess depending on where you live in the world, maybe even on Prime. So you can go check it out. For as far as the new sequel goes, we'll just have to wait. And John, it looks like you and I will just have to wait for the next Batman movie for another, damn near 3 years, which is unfortunate. Unfortunate. Lazy chicaneers. I was trying to do my Key and Peele impression, but I don't remember the actual words from the substitute teacher. So we'll just leave it there and let's move on to the second topic of the day. So this episode, if you're watching it live or even if you're watching it after the fact, you might notice in the title it says DCU Daily number 100. So it is the 100th episode of the show that we're doing. And so, we wanted to kind of get away from the bad news that was the Batman getting delayed, or at least in my opinion, the bad news of the Batman getting delayed, and talk a little bit about, how we first became fans of DC Comics. Like, because it's a big DC Comics is been around for over a century. It's one of the two most well-known brands in all of entertainment. Like, even if you're a fan of Marvel, you know a lot about DC Comics and vice versa. And while I'm not trying to hint at any sort of rivalry, that's not what this is about. We can be fans of both.
Yeah.
John and
God
I are
forbid.
fans of
Yeah, we're a fan.
John. Well,
God
yeah,
forbid liking Marvel and DC. Wow,
right,
what a
right.
concept.
But, as fans of DC, we just wanted to kinda, like, take this time and kind of talk about a little bit, like, how did we first get pulled into the world of DC Comics? What was our entry point? Was it a comic book that we picked up, or was it a TV show that we watched, or a movie that we went and saw in the theater? And where did that fandom first begin? And really just celebrate our fandom a little bit and talk about that, and then maybe, we'll gain some insight into, what we're looking forward to come in the future of DC, both on the screen and in the comics, and of course, a small screen as well, animated animation, video games, whatever that may be. So John, I guess we'll start with you. What are your, origins with DC Comics? Where did your fandom start?
Merchant. Um, yeah, so my initial superhero origins, I got bitten by this radioactive spider. No, I'm just kidding. But it did involve a radioactive spider. That was like the first ever like superhero like thing that I watched was Spider-Man. I used to have a poster, but it got really torn up, so unfortunately I had to take it down. So Spider-Man, obviously the Tobey Maguire version that like really got me into the character and that comic book world. And then when I was a kid, I was like, once my parents became more lenient when it came to superhero stuff, because they always thought it was like too violent or whatever. So they were like, okay, yeah, we'll become more lenient. Here you go. So I started watching started what I don't remember which one I watched first. I think I want to say it was the Christopher Reeve Superman movie. Yes, very cliched, but I did watch all four of them. I rented them from my nearby video store, not Blockbuster, because that went way out of business by that point. My little hunky dory mom and pop shop still was trudging along until I hit high school, I think. Yeah, it was the Christopher Reeve Superman movie that was a kind of the big pushing point. I watched all four of those movies, and I remember like I didn't know what the fuck was going on, but I'm like, these are cool. I really like these. These are fun. And I remember getting Superman 2 a lot. I really liked Superman 2 as a kid. I thought that was like so fun and silly, and then like it definitely reached more of like the kiddie aspects. I remember bits and pieces of the Richard Pryor one. Um but it was for the most part a blur. Like I remember Richard Pryor, and then like vaguely the climax with the not Brainiac computer. And then that was kind of it. I yeah, I don't remember. And then Superman 4, again, I don't remember. I didn't remember like anything when it came out. Um, when I was watching that, I don't really remember a whole lot of it, but Superman 2 and 3 were the ones I remembered the most. Because Superman 2 was one I watched, and then Superman 3 was just so ridiculous that I just had it in the back of my mind. So those were the ones I watched because my parents were fans of the Superman movies. So and then
What
I
was
eventually watched the Batman movies, but yeah, the Superman movies were my
yeah.
big introduction to that.
I was gonna ask you, which, because I've been getting a lot of these clips, like, fed to me on social media, like YouTube and Facebook and stuff, like, with reels and shorts of I forget it was which, Superman movie was it, one of the Christopher Reeves ones, where, like, he goes on this, like, drunk rager, and then he's, like, fighting himself at points.
That was Superman
It's
3 because there was like this evil computer that that used like a kryptonite ray or something, and it like separated him into good Clark Kent and bad Superman. That's where the scene where he like dumps the peanuts on the bar and starts flicking them at liquor bottles,
yeah,
which Supergirl
yeah.
parodied in fucking that her show, which was fuck. I remember I watched that live. That episode, I was pissing myself laughing because I'm like, "Oh my god, are they doing this ironically or unironically?" I genuinely cannot fucking tell.
I mean,
But yeah, I remember.
to me, that's like the OG Bully Maguire, right? Like, before Bully Maguire, there was the I don't know, Bully Superman or something, like, "What are
Yeah,
you looking at?" And then he just, like, flies off, like, half drunk into the just had to, call back to Bully Maguire himself for a second there.
yeah, yeah.
Just put that image in your
Asking for chocolate chip cookies with nuts. Perfect. But yeah, and then
um,
of course I eventually watched the Michael Keaton Batman movies. I never watched Forever or Batman and Robin because I'm like, I heard those were bad, so I didn't watch them. But and I think after watching Batman Returns, I'm like, Returns, I was like, I don't want to watch this stuff anymore. But I liked the first one. I didn't like the second one because it was like, what the? Because it's not a Batman movie; it's a Tim Burton movie. So I was like, I don't like this. So I'm like, I like the first one. I don't like the second one. And then I eventually watched Forever like years later. I don't know how long ago I did watch it, like a couple years ago, but at this point, I really liked Batman Forever. I thought it does have a lot of problems, but there's like enough good in it, and I could see what Schumacher was trying to do. And there was like a lot of good in it. And the Batman Robin's fun. It's terrible, but it's fun, you know? So those are like the big and then like it was kind of around that time. I didn't see Batman Begins in the theater, but I did like The Dark Knight craze. Like I remember watching like people making like parody upon parody of that trailer. There was like so much fucking hype for The Dark Knight. Like I remember this was back when I would watch so many of these like Lego videos. Because I mean I loved Legos. I mean I still love Legos now, but as a kid I like adored them and I would watch Lego animations all the time. And like so many of these creators I follow, they just pumped out like these Lego animation parodies,
dude,
and there was
The
just like
Dark Knight, for my money, is the greatest superhero movie of all time. I hear it.
um
Don't have to.
and I remember buying it and I remember watching that a ton, even though I had like no idea what was going on. I'm like, I don't get this movie, but it's cool. And because I was like, I don't know, I think I was like 11 when that movie came out. So I was like, ah, this is cool. Look at this
You
guy
wanna
with
see a
makeup.
magic
Isn't he
trick?
fucking cool? Look at Batman. He's so cool. And I had no fucking clue what was going on. I'm like, I don't know the story or anything. I'm like, this is cool. Yeah. So, I and then I eventually, of course, I saw Dark Knight Rises. But like that was like kind of the big thing because like being around that point, I think like what also helped was ironically those Lego animations. Like I would follow like all these guys who would use their like Batman because there were still the Batman Lego sets. They took a break and then they brought them back, but these old Batman Lego sets, they would use them like they would have like Mr. Freeze and Scarecrow and all these characters, and they would like animate like stories around them. like Forest Fire 101 was a huge one that I think I'm still subscribed to him actually out of like nostalgia. But he was the one I loved the most, and he would like parody the hell like so ridiculous and like we like there was I remember this scene where it was like, like the villains teaming up against Batman. They were trying to, defeat him. He's like, but it's like, how? But he's like, maybe we need a new member for the team. He's like, yeah, but we only have 4 guns, and like the economy really sucks right now. And then, and then I think Scarecrow shoots Mister Freeze in the face, and he's like, well, now we can get another member. Like, just like that was kind of like helped like along like because yeah, I did watch those Superman Batman, but like the Lego animations kind of helped me along a little bit like with that love when I didn't like because when I was a kid, it was like after I'm pretty sure the Batman finished, but it was before Batman Brave and the Bold came out. So it was like kind of when I was a kid, there was kind of this weird area where there was no like Batman animated series or Superman animated series or
Yeah, it
even
was a couple of
Justice
years.
League.
Warner Brothers
So
they just wanted to wash their hands with Batman after Batman and Robin. They were just like we just
yeah,
need to bury this
so
for a few
So I
years.
was like, I kind of didn't. I maybe caught some episodes of the Batman, which is like kind of like
Mhm.
considered one of the most like underrated Batman cartoons. So I think, I so like I was, it was kind of like that age where, yes, the wonderful Batgirl suit, the one bat suit that should have bat nipples but doesn't. So, but yeah, it's just like there it was kind of like this weird area where I couldn't where I didn't like have like a Batman animated series to watch. So like those animations kind of helped me along. And then I eventually when, Batman Brave and the Bold came out, I love that show. So I would watch episodes of that. I didn't watch it religiously, but I did watch a lot of it. Um, but yeah, there was that. And then, I kind of, um, and then yeah, and then like Dark Knight, all that stuff, and then like this was like Iron Man was coming out, so then it was like starting to kick into gear. Like all this stuff, you had like those Dark Knight movies, you had like more animations coming out, you have all this stuff. So that was like kind of it was like the mid to late 2000s, which really jump started my love for DC because there wasn't a ton of Marvel stuff. You had like Spider Man, and then you kind of had the Hulk craze with the Ang Lee Hulk, even though the movie sucked. Like it
It
was more like a
sucked.
Hulk
It was just a
craze.
character
Like
Hulk,
it's
yeah.
Hulk. Like we don't give a fuck about the movie, but like Hulk, like oh, people love Hulk now because it's like a thing now again after like so long after like the Bill Bixby show had been off the air for like 30 years by that point. So you had all that. Um, but yeah, because there was not a ton of Marvel stuff, if I remember correctly. I mean, I'm sure again somebody in the comments will be like, actually there was this really great show. And so there's gonna be somebody, but like but I feel like there was more DC content. Like
That's
there
the
was
exact sound they're
way
gonna
more
make
DC
too.
content, like comparatively. So that was what I just ended up watching. Like, because I feel like if in the 90s like there were a lot of people that grew up with that ended up being Marvel fans because there was a lot more animation. Like you had the Hulk animated show, you had the Iron Man animated show, you had the Fantastic Four animated show, you had a lot of and you had the Spider-Man the man. Of course, I could fucking forget Spider-Man the animated series. You had all those. So and then X-Men, of course, X-Men that was you had so much animation with Marvel, and then it kind of just stopped pretty much after X-Men Evolution. I mean, sure you had some like Spider-Man animated shows, but I like never watched those. Like you had the one that starred Drake Bell, and then like it kind of fell off after that. So I don't know. Like I just feel like ignoring the Spider-Man movies, I never really saw any like major Marvel shows outside of maybe the Spider-Man, but I don't really remember any Spider-Man shows that were out when I was a kid. So um, but yeah, that was kind of like the big push. It was like I was like the perfect time, when the Dark Knight came out, that Dark Knight craze. I was like impressionable kid, but not like I wasn't old enough to be like kind of like aware of it, like a teenager, where I was like, okay, yeah, this is a cool movie. But at the same time, I wasn't young enough to like not understand it. It was like that perfect age of like kind of being aware of like Batman and like what the story was, but not aware too much. Where it's like the really fucked up shit that happens in that goddamn movie. So it was like, yeah, it was like that perfect time of like kind of growing up with Batman, and then Dark Knight craze hit, and that kind of just catapulted my love for. I mean, you can't really see. I mean, I have my DC poster right here. I have another one up
Nice.
there. I have my can't see it, but my Action Comics number one up there, and then I have a whole bunch of smaller posters that you can't see. I have a bunch over there, behind my door, up there. You can't see them on camera, but I do have them. You just can't see them. But yeah, I do have a lot of like DC stuff surrounding me. I got a bunch of Marvel stuff surrounding me. So yeah, I got a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
but yeah, that kind of, catapulted it, just being at the right age when this fucking movie came out, like this huge
Dude,
fucking cultural
this
phenomenon
this
came out.
movie, like, people sometimes don't people forget because, yeah, this movie came out before the Avengers came out, before all those other things came out that
Yeah.
now people like there's a whole generation of fans that have known, like, Marvel as the big kahuna, but I'm like, "You guys do realize that only has been the case for, like, the last, I don't know, like, 10 odd years?" But you go back to, like, when The Dark Knight came out, The Dark Knight was the biggest
Yeah.
thing and like that legit I people say, "Oh yeah, the Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire and the X-Men movies, like they legitimized comic book movies." No, The Dark Knight single-handedly legitimized the whole genre in this and in a way that none of those other movies quite did. Because you look back at The Dark Knight, it ages far better than some of those other movies. Because like even the best Spider-Man Tobey Maguire movie, which was probably Spider-Man 2, has quirks of its time that superhero movies at the time were known for, that The Dark Knight just The Dark Knight is just a great film. Exactly, the whole the
Although that was
William
Spider-Man 3, not Spider.
Yeah, just, Willie Maguire making another appearance there, but it's like, honestly, like, to me, like, I grew up so my origin story with DC Comics, not AC Comics, just letting you know, they don't call it Action Comics comics, they call it Detective Comics comics. So I like to still think Batman, you know, DC Comics is the house that Batman built. Um, although AC/DC Comics would be quite something too, I'm sure they'd have great taste in music. But getting back to my origin story, I mean, I grew up on Batman Beyond, Batman the Animated Series. My mom would take me to the local video store and we would rent it on VHS tapes. And, I grew up watching the Batman the Animated Series, which even today I'm like, it's one of the best animated shows ever made. It has some mature themes, and yet it worked for kids. It was a show that was ahead of its time, and even today, I think a lot of animated shows would kill to kind of balance out all the elements, the mise en scène of what Batman the Animated Series achieved. That even I think with Batman Cape Crusader, I hope if they can get anywhere close to what the Batman the Animated Series did, they would be doing, one hell of a job. And then of course, the Justice League shows, the Justice League Unlimited, those I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
Zack Snyder was working on a Justice League movie. I was like, they should literally just take the theme from the animated show and just put it in there. Like, why not? Like, it was so freaking, especially the Unlimited, with the guitar solo added in. I was like, yeah, like electric guitar. Like, let's get some of that. And then of course, from there, with Christopher Nolan's, Batman Begins, that changed the game. But before that, I was getting Batman Beyond on like on VCDs, like before DVDs were a thing. And so you'd pop in multiple discs to watch like episodes, and that Batman Beyond, we've talked about it a lot. Like I remember watching Batman Beyond when it was like around and seeing like, oh my god, this shit is like great. Like it's so different and yet it's so good, and I want, like, I couldn't get enough of Batman Beyond. Um, so yeah, I grew that was my entry point into DC Comics, was Batman, and even today, that's my touch point. And then of course, you mentioned it. I think you and I have. Well, before I actually mention that, let me just kind of quickly stop and and appreciate the greatness of Batman and Robin, because let's be honest, Batman and Robin is not a good movie, but it's so good. It's so freaking
But I
good.
gotta ask you this. What killed the dinosaurs?
I'll do you one better. It's like where'd the Iceman go? Maybe he's hibernating. It's like, like the whole or like the edgy, like the Chris O'Donnell being way too old to throw a teenage hissy fit and then run off, and then Alicia
Why is
Silverstone
it
was it
Batman and Robin and not Robin and Batman?
Batman, yeah.
This is why Superman works alone.
This was super. I'm like, seriously, or like, was it my bad credit card? Never leave the house without it. Mastercard. I'm like, okay, like I want that bad credit card. Like they sold me on that shit. And of course, like you get to watch Uma Thurman. That's always a good thing. And dude, Mr. Freeze. Wow, this look,
I will say I do
You
like
will. I
that
will
suit.
never.
It's kind of a fucking cool suit. Not
I
gonna
will
lie.
never get tired of he comes in like his entrance and he's like this bonkers crazy whatever tank thing and he's like allow me to break the ice, chill, like I can never get tired of
Freeze
that.
where? Stay cool, bird boy.
It's a cool you can't get rid.
Or
It's
he's like
too much fun.
forcing his minions to sing the Snow Miser song from Year Without a
There's a whole
Santa
dance
Claus.
sequence. I was like, "Holy shit!" And what's the name of the actress who plays his like sort of like sidekick assistant person?
I don't
She was
know. I
she
don't
was in
know.
Independence Day. Dude.
I don't remember.
um, I'm just okay. Anyway, dude, the Batman and Robin is probably like the greatest superhero movie ever made. It will take so much to beat it because yeah, the whole every time like they're dressing up and then you get the crotch shot, you get the butt shot, you get the chest shot, and you get like the whole like the turns and everything, the belt, and the teenage angst of I mean Chris O'Donnell like looked like a 25-year-old playing a 15-year-old. And
Yeah.
then,
Like
Arnold Schwarzenegger was the only one who thought he was in a very serious movie. Everybody or like I guess he thought the complete opposite. Because the dude was having so much
I
fun.
don't know, but uh Viveka A. Fox. I'm probably pronouncing that
Yeah,
wrong, but that was the
Vivica A.
actress.
Fox.
Vivica, that was
Vivica,
it.
or like as honest trailer says, Vivica, not A. Fox.
And then
She's
or
like,
like the whole thing
dude.
was like Coolio showing up and like he
Mhm.
even said like, "Oh, I was supposed to be Scarecrow in a sequel." I'm like, "I don't fucking believe that for a fucking second." He's like,
No
"No, we
way.
just want you because your name is Cool, EO, and we have Mr.
Coolio.
Freeze in the movie." And then that was it.
But you know what? That's the kind of logic that applied to everything in this movie. So of course that could have been true. Like I mean, look at freaking Bane. He looks like the wrestling villain from the second Despicable Me movie. Yeah, he looks some matador
I
or
don't
something.
know.
Uh, yeah, but
At
then you
least
have
he's
this stuff.
silent, unlike, like
Oh, there it is,
Bane
the goth
gobbling
card.
balls in fucking Dark Knight Rises.
Well, I get that, but dude, okay, let's just I have a
I have
yeah,
a
it's
love-hate
like
relationship with Bane in Dark Knight Rises. He's really good, don't get me
you've
wrong. It's just the fucking
the whole
ADR,
you've come back to die with your city. It's like the whole
it's a really good performance, but like I
it's
just
a
wish
lovely,
it
lovely
wasn't so
voice.
terribly
Yeah, I can't
ADR'd.
even
I also love it. I just love how like it's also just George Clooney being George
Mhm.
Clooney. He's like, "Hi, Freeze. I'm Batman." Like,
Right, yep,
just
yep.
not even.
Dude, I'm telling you, the only guy who actually was playing a character in that movie was Arnold Schwarzenegger. He he was like Mr. Freeze. He totally embodied the character. Everybody else just didn't give a shit because they were like, "This is a terrible movie." Arnold was like, "You know what? I'm gonna make this shit work," and he did. Like absolute like still one of the best superhero comic book movie villains I've ever seen because it's just enjoyable. Like you could just put that movie on and just have a laugh. I feel like they should put out like a 25th or 30th. I mean, oh, like of course Jennifer Garner like shows up in it randomly for like a couple of scenes. It's
Is
like
that her? I don't. I
I
think that
think
actually
that's her.
does.
Isn't that her? She looks like Jennifer Garner. Am I not right about that? Let's see. Actually, she might be too young for that time, but, it looks like it.
It's Ellie McPherson was
Ally
Bruce Wayne's
McPherson.
girlfriend.
Alright. She looks like Jennifer Garner, so, like, whatever. But dude, this movie, like, oh, this is what a Clockwork Orange parody going on in the middle of the movie out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, it may I mean, the Droogs showing up here makes more sense than Space Jam 2.
yeah, the Coolio. This whole sequence like made no sense whatsoever. Or like again, Alicia Silverstone. And even then, I was like, I don't know if she can't. She was meant to be what, like a teenager from like coming back from high school, like for vacation.
I think she
Or
was
there's a sequence in this part of the movie where they're literally looking at each other for like 5 minutes and nobody talks, and it's just like unedited, just like they're just nodding, nodding, and nodding, and I'm like, okay, great. And then
I
of
don't
course
think it's ever brought up her age. I think she's supposed to be in college.
whatever. I mean, she looked like, again, they looked like too old to be playing the characters that they were trying to play. But dude, this movie is just an all-time, classic. Like, not for being a great movie, but it's just an all-time classic. Like, look at this. Like, you see this on a poster, you're like, you don't want you. And even today, I feel like people would go watch this movie today, and this movie might become like a runaway, because going by how trends go today on social media, people out of spite will turn this into a $1 billion movie.
I
I
don't know. They tried to
guarantee
do the
you
same
if
thing with
they.
Morbius, and look how that turned out.
Well,
Like,
no,
I
but that
mean,
movie, dude, but Morbius
but
wasn't
Morbin
fun.
Time became like a meme, but nobody saw that
Right, but
when they
nobody wanted to
re-released it.
spend money on it. Like, when you spend money on this movie, you get to watch, like, Arnold. Like, I mean, just do you remember that sequence at the Oscars this year, right? Like, it only happens days ago, where Michael Keaton, okay, this is, dude, I still watch this, like, twice a day because I can't get over this whole sequence where they're like,
I also
what are you
love
doing
how
here, that
Michael
son of a
Keaton
bitch?"
looks like Bruce Wayne, like him
Dude,
wearing
he
a
does.
fucking ascot or
And and
whatever.
like, yeah, I'm like, totally. And he's like, "I'll see you after the governor's ball." And he's like, "Yeah, come on, bring it on." I'm like, "Yes, I want that movie. I want that movie." Like that, like, Batman Returns again, and then you've all of a sudden got the Return of the Penguin,
Batman
or the
continues.
Batman Continues, exactly, or Batman Return of the Penguin and Mr. Freeze, or Batman Returns, chill, chill, and then just like people will say
No,
the name of the
it's
movie in Arnold's accent.
Batman Hell freezes over, or like that
Yeah,
would
Hell
that would be
Freeze.
a cool name.
That'd be a good title. That'd be a really good title. I'm just, dude, it's so classic. Those '90s movies were just, I mean, especially Batman and Robin. Like, we had it on VHS at one of my cousin's house, and whenever we would go visit them, it was like a must. Like, whatever we were doing, just pop it on. Like, it was just too much fun. And then, of course, moving forward to The Dark Knight, dude, The Dark Knight changed my life forever. I'm doing what I'm doing today, like, as a storyteller, filmmaker, whatever I do, it's because of The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is, in my opinion, one of the greatest movies of all time. Certainly the greatest superhero movie of all time, the greatest comic book movie of all time. It's a crime thriller, and it's infinitely quotable, from the whole "some men just want to watch the world burn," or "do you want
Mhm.
to see a magic trick," or like the whole, there's this, it's, like, you either die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain, or like, "Hit me, hit me," and it's like, "Ah," or like, "How many of your friends do you want, and who squealed, you how many of your friends have I killed?" And just the whole, dude, this movie blew my mind. Joker gets arrested, put in prison, and I'm like, all right, end of film. And then they've got another fucking 50 minutes of the greatest movie like I've ever seen. So like, it's, like that whole scene, I'm like, all right, this is now credits roll, and yet then they push like that dude into the prison, and there's a phone inside his body, and all of a sudden the thing blows up, and I'm like, whoa, I was getting ready to like leave the theater and go to the restroom, and then nope, here we are. We got another like half of a movie to go. And because Two-Face hadn't happened yet, I'm like, there's this whole like sequence that comes after it. So I can talk about The Dark Knight all day long. The Dark Knight Rises is also, up there for me, but The Dark Knight, dude, it's
No Batman Begins.
Batman Begins was huge. Dude, I have like the art book. I still look at the pictures of like how, how the set design, and I mean, and also like how they kind of changed it up for the Dark Knight, and they went with a more realistic look rather than, what they had in Batman Begins. But seeing Batman Begins was like revolutionary, because growing up in the '90s Batman movies, I was like, holy shit, this is different. Ra's al Ghul, the League of Shadows, or like, it's completely that was game changing. Or like, his when he's driving the tumbler, he's like, "Whoa!" Commissioner Gordon, like, he knocked it over. Or the guy who walks up and he's like, "Oh, that's a cool car," and then he's like, he knocks a bridge down and he just walks back away. I'm like, I have these core memories from this franchise that I'm never, or like the fact that in the second movie they're like, yeah, something where makes it easier to like turn your head a little bit. And so they give him, like, finally Batman gets a cowl that doesn't need to move with the shoulders and you can kind of get, it's a little more tactile suit.
I
So
will say I never liked the Dark Knight suit. I just think it looked like not like a Batman suit. Like I don't know. It just looked like an arm, like a soldier wearing a cowl to me. Like
but I
I will,
mean, it's
I
part of
prefer,
the
I prefer the Batman Begins suit. Like it looked more like a Batman suit. Like,
I get
and I
that,
also
but
don't
that's the
like how
thing about
I don't
yeah.
like how the abs cave in for the bat symbol, so it doesn't look like he's wearing a bat symbol. Like it just looks like, oh, he like has like a bat thing, but it like doesn't look right because the abs like go in. So it just looked weird to me. I never liked how the
Yeah.
bat suit
Dude,
looked.
this picture right here of Nolan with like the bat signal, it's just like,
The
that's living. That
the
picture's been
I've
living
seen
rent
so
free in
many
my
like
head
news stories with this
for like 16
thumbnail. Like,
years. Dude,
yeah,
exactly. Classic, like, whoever shot this behind the scenes photo just, on point. But I see your point, but, like, the thing is this movie, like, it made Batman feel about as real as we're ever gonna get, and, like, I just was, even today, I'm like, "This is peak Batman for me." The Batman is great and probably the best iteration of the Batman since The Dark Knight, but, dude, The Dark Knight like, the trailer, you
I
said,
had that
right? Like, all
poster.
the parodies?
Wait, go back. I had
I
that
ha
poster. I
Dude, I
had
have these
that.
posters. I have it rolled up
Yeah,
still.
I
I
had
need to,
that
like, put
Joker
it
poster. Like, I
yeah.
didn't know I had like, the thing is, I mean, you could see, like, I have no room on my walls,
Mhm.
so I had to put it above my bed because I, like, had nowhere else to put the fucking thing.
To go to bed
So,
looking
like,
at the
I would
Joker.
always look up and I would see the Joker, I would be like, "Yeah, fuck yeah." And then but the thing is, like,
Everything burns.
my sister needed to borrow my room
Yeah.
for I forget why she needed to sleep in my bed. I think she had like a friend over or something, and she's like, I couldn't go to sleep because of the fucking Joker looking at me. And I'm like, why do you have this above your bed? Do you like jack off the fucking Joker in the middle of the night? I'm like, no, ew, what are you talking about? Like, that's what the fucking poster above the bed is for. No, so like everyone kept making fun of me for it, so I had to take it down. I don't know where. I think I have it in my closet somewhere, but I
Yeah.
but yeah, like I had that fucking poster for the longest time, and yeah, that was a fucking awesome poster. I
Dude,
really
some
like
people just don't understand, like, that's just how it is. I mean, this movie also has, like, probably one of the greatest opening sequences of all time with that whole Joker heist sequence, and they
I
shot it
don't
in
know. I will
IMAX,
say excellent
so
scene. I'm not denying the excellence of that scene, but that opening to Batman versus Superman is also like so good.
it's
Like
good.
I don't love
Dude,
that movie, but that is
I
like
hear you. I do. It's up there, and I don't know in which order I would put it because even for me, even like the beginning of Iron Man 2 is one of the best openings to any superhero movie. With him flying out of the jet to the tune of AC/DC and landing in the middle of basically like Comic Con in New York. Like it's just like it's yeah. Anyway, but like let's keep the ball rolling here. I mean, for me, like from there, then you get into I've always loved Man of Steel. Man of Steel to me is the greatest Superman movie ever made, and it's highly underrated. I don't know
to
what
me,
the
it's
F
the
is wrong
Iron
with people who
Giant.
don't like it. It's I'm just saying that movie made Superman feel more real, more grounded, and the true consequences of what that kind of a being existing in real life would bring, especially in a world that's more polarized than ever before. I thought that movie was ahead of the curve. Not only that, but I think they got the essence of Superman really, really well. And the action was Zack Snyder over the top, but also the just how much depth and just pure sci-fi bliss they explored the whole Krypton mythology. It blew my mind. I've also got the art books for this movie. I'm like, it's still to this day. I'm like, I don't know if even James Gunn can get Krypton as detailed and epic as what they did in this. They had enough detail in this Krypton that the Krypton show was gonna be like, oh yeah, we're sort of connected to the Krypton of Man of Steel, and then they went into their own shit. But whatever. I feel like they could have, like, in today's world, if Man of Steel was coming out, they would have done a prequel series of Krypton. And because there was enough detail that they built into that movie that they could have done that. And people like talk about the suit or like Henry Cavill's performance. I'm like, dude, he did about as well as any. I mean, I don't know what he did wrong, and I loved every aspect of it. Or like every time, like the whole pop can't, all the conversations of like, I just want to be your son, and he's like, I am your son, or you are my son, and or like you got to decide what kind of man you want to be when you grow up, Clark, because good or bad, he's gonna change the world. And it's like these are just like, fuck, like this is what Superman is. This is the responsibility that Superman shoulders, and so I think they got and then Michael Shannon, they got the essence of Superman right, Clark Kent, but then, dude, Michael Shannon's Zod, still, I would put it in over the course of the last 20 years, like right up there. I think my top three comic book villains of those last 20 or so years, or maybe even all time, you've got the Joker. Then I would put like Zod, General Zod, and then maybe Thanos. Like if Thanos in my list makes it to like three. Because General Zod, the whole I will find him. I will find him. Like he like five times. I'm like, dude, somebody show me the script, what it said. I will find him. 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 And then Michael Shannon's like, bet. I will find him. I'm like, it's just like, and then he is getting like frozen up. I'm like, that's, just next level acting. So I love and of course Lawrence Fishburne, Amy Adams, you know, just all around the cast was amazing. Diane Lane, like, they pulled out all the stops for this movie like they're doing for Superman. And it's unfortunate that this iteration is not as universally beloved as it should be, but quite frankly, I mean, when you've got two fathers and one of them is Kevin Costner and the other one is Russell Crowe, and then of course, Henry Cavill's playing Superman, like you on paper is probably one of the best casts of Superman ever assembled. So yeah, I mean, and then of course I'm a fan of the DCEU, so that's where the fandom continues. And now the DCU, I'm gonna be watching. We're gonna be watching, so we'll see where that takes us. But before we kind of wrap up for the day, now that we've really kind of dug into our origins, I wanted to kind of go through some fan comments because we do get
Yeah.
some pretty cool fan comments on the channel. And let's just say they vary from people who are just complimentary to people who have got some hot takes to people who, have some very strongly opinionated takes that they'd like to share, which we appreciate. Please do leave your comments down below, and of course, leave if you're not watching this live, or if you are watching it live, then get in the chat. So let's get into this. Like John, you picked out three comments that you wanted to address. So we'll go into the first one. This, I believe, had to do with one of our Superman topics that we did recently. So let's take a look. It's the one where we were like, why Marvel shouldn't pick a fight with Superman, and it's around the time that we found out that Fantastic Four was being released, set to release around the same time as Superman next year, and it's only a couple of weeks apart. So the comment from Dave Miller 6055, he's like, well, Superman Legacy at the time it was known as Superman Legacy, now just known as Superman, is definitely the underdog here. I don't think it will amount to much of anything. It has too much going against it. The DC brand is heavily damaged by years of studio incompetence. People have lost confidence in DC films, and many people are upset about how Henry Cavill was treated and don't want to reboot anyway. Now, there's a long comment here, so I'm going to skip across a little bit. And he mentions Universal will almost certainly buy Warner Brothers this year, and they will scrap the DCU and put their own people in place, like takeovers always do. They won't want the drama and baggage of the DCEU/DCU. Warner Brothers Discovery is $5 billion in debt, and stock prices have not recovered since the reboot announcement. So the budget for Superman will be Shazam level, which is not true. We know that it's higher than that. How do you make a Superman film with all these characters with a small budget? So John, you looked at this comment. I mean, and there's more to it than what I just read out because he goes into a little more of a lot more
Right.
detail talking about Gunn's take on the character and really how it differentiates from everything else that we have seen in recent iterations. So, what are your thoughts about this comment from Dave Miller? I'll put it up again just for people to look at it, but tell us what you think.
I don't think it's I don't think Superman is like a total underdog because I just see so much like news like immediately hitting like and people talking about it, whether it be negatively or positively. People are talking about it. Like James Gunn keeps giving updates on his threads and Instagram. Like I think he is getting people pumped. Now, and the thing is with, and I think I mentioned this in the video, the Marvel is kind of being shaky. There is some losing hope in that, in that like brand loyalty, I guess. Like people are being like, oh, maybe
Yeah.
Marvel isn't that fucking great anymore. And not like that it's totally broken. Sure, you have like a lot of stuff that's like really good. Like, I mean, Guardians was well liked. Marvel's was more mixed than anything. So I think and then you have all like the TV stuff, which kind of gets mixed. I know Secret Invasion was incredibly hated, which like fair from what I heard. She-Hulk was incredibly hated, but then you have like stuff like Moon Knight, Miss Marvel that people liked because I feel like Amon Vellani is kind of has like that her and Ryan Reynolds are like probably need to go to like back surgery because they're holding the MCU on their fucking backs right now. So and you're muted. I don't think I could hear you.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I'm totally agree with you. Iman Milani is a superstar. Like they're
oh yeah,
carrying that
she's
universe.
great because
I mean,
she's a
Deadpool is
fan.
gonna probably have to
So
stay
she
there.
sees like
She's a
all the
fan.
bullshit like before it because it's like she like has read like all the stuff as an outsider. Now that she's an insider, that doesn't change her. She's like still points out like, why the fuck did you kill Black Bolt like that? No, this is not Earth 616. This is Earth 1999999. Like fuck out of here. What are you talking about? Feige, get the hell out of here. And then and then you have Deadpool Wolverine, which is causing a lot of hype. But it's like honestly, with in terms, but the thing is, okay, if I think Dave Miller is his name, 6055, if it was Deadpool and Wolverine versus Superman Legacy or Superman Not Legacy now, then I'd be like, oh yeah, Superman's losing this battle because you have a sequel to a beloved character. You have all these Fox people coming out. You have Hugh Jackman coming back. All this shit. Of course, Superman is going to lose because the last movie was 10 years ago. But like, I still, even then, like, James Gunn is like pushing this movie along and like really trying to get amp people up and all that. So you have that. But the thing is, it's Fantastic Four. Nobody gives a fuck about Fantastic Four. Who gives a fuck about Fantastic Four? This is the fourth time, ironically, they're trying to reboot this shit, and nobody cares. Because it's just like the only reason people care is that like Pedro Pascal is gonna be in it because he's like the zaddy of Hollywood right now. So like everybody fucking loves him, and he's really good at like trekking youngsters across places. So you know what? He's Mandalorian. He's
That's true.
Joel. He's like, yeah, everybody loves him now. So it's like, of course, like people are gonna watch it for him. But it's like, who gives a fuck about Fantastic Four? Who gives a fuck about Fantastic Four? Fucking Fantastic Four fans don't give a fuck about Fantastic Four. So it's like, I don't know. Like, it just seems like weird. It's like maybe there is some, in terms of like, I guess the wider. I guess he's talking about like the wider brand. Then like, sure, I can maybe see that. But it's like, yeah, Marvel is winning, but it's like Marvel is kind of faltering. DC is getting some more excitement. So I think it's more balanced than like, oh, one is clearly the underdog and one is like clearly going to reign out on top. I think it's more evenly balanced because of like the various attributes of like the films themselves, not just the brands, because the brands are one thing, but the movies are the other. So it's like Superman is one of the most recognizable characters ever. Fantastic Four really isn't, and the fact that they have not gotten these characters right on screen yet after how many years? So it's like, I don't know. It's just like I mean, I hope both are like obviously I want Superman like not Legacy to be great. I want Fantastic Four to be finally be like at least halfway decent, even if Ebon Moss Bachrach is a fucking moron. But I want these movies to be good. Like I
Really?
don't want movies to be bad, but like I want these movies to be really, really good. And they have a good cast here. So for both. So I want both to be good, but I don't think it's like one is a clear underdog and one is a clear like winner. I think it's like kind of mishmash in terms of the brand, Marvel going downhill, DC kind of slowly maybe climbing uphill. Although, David Zaslav canceling movies left and right does not help matters. Although there's a new report that Toyota versus Acme is getting shopped around again. So who the
Well,
fuck
actually,
knows? So
they did do that, and nobody was interested enough to give him an
yeah,
offer
but
that they
now
thought was
apparently they're
reasonable.
doing it again.
Are
So
they?
they're
Because
I
they were
don't
saying
know.
that they were
Like
gonna like just destroy it, which I was like, why would you?
I don't know.
I don't
It's
get
like a
that.
whole can of worms. So I'm gonna try not to even get into that. But so I don't think it's like clear yes or no. But I think he did leave an interesting comment with a lot of like stuff. But I mean, like there's also some like Universal is not gonna buy
No,
WB.
I mean,
I mean,
yes,
he canceled
and
the Paramount
Comcast.
merger.
Yeah.
Like there was supposed to be like a Paramount merger, and that fucking got
Well,
canceled. So it's like,
no, but the thing is that so Paramount, like right now, Warner Brothers cannot officially be negotiating to do any kind of mergers or acquisitions until like I think it's April of this year, because there's a clause from Discovery's purchase of Warner Brothers from AT&T. The way they went about it, there was a tax saving measure that they use, which forces you to then not be able to like do any acquisitions or sales for a certain period of time. So there's that hurdle. Then there's also the idea that Skydance, that has been financing Paramount's slate for years, they are interested in also buying, Paramount. So they're not the Warner Brothers is not the only interested buyer. Plus, like Warner Brothers is, I don't think they're truly gonna be in a position to be selling themselves or buying others for at least another year, maybe realistically speaking. And every merger takes forever to figure out. So even if the conversations start now, it will take a long time. And yes, Comcast has the money. They recently got a big cash injection from Disney, feeding them all that free money for buying their part of Hulu that they were forced into, which isn't something Disney wasn't aware of. Disney knew about it for like 3 years at this point. But, and Comcast is, from just a cash flow standpoint, a huge company that has a lot of money sitting around that they can throw at something like this. But I don't think they're interested in doing that. I mean, I don't think David Zaslav and Discovery, Warner Brothers Discovery, are interested in making that happen right now. It's just It's beyond speculation to say that Universal is going to buy them any day now. But yeah, I look. Superman and Fantastic Four are two properties that have something in common, which is that both of them have had some very underrated and then some bad iterations recently, and both of them have struggled financially at the box office. So Marvel is trying to rehabilitate the image of Fantastic Four. This is the first time Marvel Studios will tackle it. I love the cast. They're all great, talented actors. So let's see what they can come up with. And on the Superman side, we've got all the talent in the world. So honestly, it's gonna be hard to mess that up. And I think James Gunn is a pretty good filmmaker, so he will figure it out. And they'll be coming out 2 weeks apart, so we won't have to wait very long to watch one and then watch the other. So I'm sure we'll figure out sooner than later, like which movie is better, and then I'm sure people will make comparisons next year, next summer when it all goes down. Now let's go to the second comment. This one is comes to us from Peace Peacekeeper? I thought he said Peacemaker, but anyway, he's Peacekeeper. Let me put it on screen here, full screen. So he's saying, well, this is from a DCU fan casting that we did. So we were casting Batman for the Brave and the Bold, and basically, um, this user Peacekeeper MD2TR decided to give us his fan casting for the whole Brave and the Bold movie.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, John, I won't read it out because it's on screen. You go through like these
yeah,
fan
I
castings,
wanted
and
to
let's see
talk
what you
about
think about it.
this because
Yeah.
I have that first one as Batman. I cannot fucking tell you how fucking sick I am of seeing Scott Adkins as Batman. That Alan Ritchson as Batman and Jensen Ackles as Batman, I'm so fucking sick of them. Anytime those three are mentioned, I'm like, I just can't. I just can't deal with you. I'm sorry. I'm sure will they be major? It's just they're so cliched at this point. So cliched. Jensen Ackles could maybe do it. Alan Ritchson can't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like him as Jack Reacher. Bro can't fucking act. Like he, I'm sorry. Like the man cannot act out of a wet paper bag. Like I'm sorry. And then Scott Adkins, neither can he. He's a stunt guy. He's a very good stunt guy. Don't get me wrong. He can fight like a motherfucker. Maybe he could be Batman's stunt double, but not Batman. Like I understand, like I know people have said, man, oh, Batman doesn't require a lot of acting, but like more than glorified stunt guy can fucking figure out. Like, I'm just so sick of Scott. I'm so sick of Scott seeing Scott. Like so many people, Scott Adkins. I'm like, I can't wait for Scott Adkins to be like fucking like 70 so people can stop casting him as Batman. Like, I'm
I
so
mean,
fucking sick. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. Like, I just don't get why so many people are like, oh yeah, Scott Adkins as Bat. Like, oh my god, it's so annoying. He can't act. Stop.
I mean,
Like,
he did
it's
a pretty
so
good job in
ridiculous.
John Wick 4, right?
Oh
The
my
fourth,
god,
yeah,
he
John
was
Wick
the worst
4. I
part of the
mean,
movie. Like, it was so
I
cringy.
like it was I mean, I think it
The
was
fight
meant to
scene was
be, like,
great,
over
but
the
his
top.
attempt at
Yeah,
acting was laughable at most. Like, I can't.
yeah.
Like, he was
I mean,
trying
okay.
to, like, be funny, and it just did not work at all. Like, it was so ridiculous. And the fat suit, I don't care what anybody says, that fat suit looked fucking horrendous. Like, it was so laughably bad. But don't get me wrong, great movie, but oof, like, and it's just like one I'm sick of. Like, I'm so sick of seeing that. Although I will say the next two are good, but the thing is they might be the age range might be a little bit off, because that's the thing I think about in terms of
Yeah.
fan casting. Age range and what I think they'll go for in terms of Batman. And so I think they'll go with someone who's like 35 to 40, which Scott Adkins is already too old. So Colin Firth, I think he's in his 60s, I want to say. I'm going to look that up really quickly so I
Probably.
don't
I mean,
look
he's a
fool.
yeah, I mean, that sounds about right.
He's 63. So I think that's good. I think he's like I like similar with like how people make fun of like Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. She's like, "No, that's not Aunt May, that's a MILF." Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's like, so I can like kind of see that. Like, he's kind of, you know, he kind of like is sort of like still loved by like middle-aged women who will like want to fuck him for some reason. So I feel like he's not quite old enough, but I still think I could see him doing it. Like, he would be like, I could definitely see him as more of like, Jeremy Irons's Alfred, where he's just sassy as fuck. Like, I would love to see that. I think Colin Firth could definitely do that really well. And not saying he can't,
I
because
did
I mean
really
he can
like that.
fight. He
I think
can
Jeremy
fight.
Irons did a good job with that role.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
he
Colin
provided
Firth, I
some,
could definitely see in that
yeah.
vein, and he can fight, like, he's badass, like, I
Mhm.
mean, the
I
Kingsman
mean,
movies, like,
Kingsman, yeah, exactly.
yeah, like, he
So,
did a lot of his own stunts too, so,
mhm.
that's awesome, and same with Timothy Chalamet. I think he could be a good Nightwing, and, he's beloved right now, he's, like, the fucking heartthrob, but I think he's, like, also a genuinely good actor. Like, I think he's a little bit too old for this version of Nightwing, because he's,
Yeah.
like, about I think he's like 30, like almost 30, like in his late 20s at least. So I think that's a little bit too old. Um, he's 28,
Yeah.
so he's almost 30. But I think again, I'm trying to think of casting in terms of this movie specifically. I just think that's a little bit too old. I think if because James Gunn did say they're going to do a Bat family thing. That's why they have Damian Wayne here so they can introduce all of the Bat family. Awesome. I think they would at most have a character, a guy be like 25. So someone who clearly has some years on him, but obviously Timothy Chalamet can show that because he's 28, but he could still look like a 20-year-old. I mean, that's what Call Me by Your Name was. Like, he was like playing a 14-year-old, yet he was like, when did that movie come out? Like 2016, I think, or 2018 or something like that. Yeah, like he could
Yep.
still play younger, but I think they would still want someone in that age range so that they can, actually grow with the role. And, if like at a certain point, like they don't want to do it anymore, then they can like, kind of, but like it's like, again, I'm trying to think of the ages and that kind of thing. But then I have the
Yeah.
biggest problem here. This is the one that I was like, what am I looking at? Is Mina Masood as Damian Wayne. Now, I'm sure the man is a great actor. I have not seen Aladdin, and that was his biggest, quote unquote claim to fame, I guess, recently. And he's, you know, Egyptian, and that can like feed into more of like Damian Wayne. Here's the problem though. You have Timothy, and I'm just looking at this guy's casting. You have Timothy Chalamet as Dick Grayson. How in the hell would Damian Wayne be older than the oldest Robin? That makes no fucking sense. What do you mean? Like, Mina Masood, he's 32 years old. 32. Timothy Chalamet is 28. How is Damian Wayne older than Dick Grayson? That doesn't make sense. At the most, Damian Wayne would have to be like maybe 14, 15 years old. So that is way too old. Unless they like, do like a Sigourney Weaver on Avatar 2 where they like digitally like put him in a mocap suit and like digitally de-age him and make him look like a 14-year-old. And considering how bad Sigourney Weaver was in that movie trying to play a teenager, I don't think they're going to do that. So that was the big one of like, what, how, why, what? That was like the biggest confusion with this guy's casting. Sure, Scott Adkins would suck, but like, and Scott Adkins is like 47, I think. How the fuck would he have a
He's
32-year-old son?
he's
The,
yeah, he's a
the
little
timelines don't match up.
right.
That doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, it's not a perfect. Look, as far as the rest of the casting goes, Sadie Sink as Barbara Gordon. I think you're looking for
Oh yeah, she
you
would
could
be
somebody you
great.
can build with. Johnny Depp as Jack Napier or the Joker. I'm sure that fan casting would work for a lot of people, but I'm not sure if Warner Brothers want to get with Johnny Depp right now.
Yeah, I would love
Darcy Montgomery,
I would love Dacre Montgomery as Jason Todd.
Diego
That dude
Montgomery,
would be
yes,
perfect.
he would be
Bill
great. I
Pullman as
mean,
Commissioner Gordon, perfect. Don't get me
yeah.
wrong. A lot of these are really good. It's just like some of the ages don't match it. And the Mina Masood thing, that was like, what am I looking at? I guess he's trying to adapt the three Jokers here. That's why there's like Jack Napier, Arthur Fleck, and some random guy. I don't know the other two actors for the Joker. I do genuinely believe Johnny Depp could be a good Joker. But like people like he's just for the last like 10 movies he's done, he's just doing a Jack Sparrow impression. It's like, dude, you're a good actor. Stop doing a Jack. Especially if you see him in Ed Wood, he definitely has that like weird, deranged, like craziness to him that I definitely think he could work for the Joker. But like, I was never a fan of like the Joker having a name. Like, I hated, the thing I hate about Batman 89 is like giving Joker a backstory and like, oh, he killed Batman's parents. It's like that. I don't like that. And then like the Arthur Fleck, at least that makes sense for Todd Phillips's Joker, but like that's like a different version. And it's just like I just don't like the Joker having a backstory. It like takes away. Like he's just supposed to be a guy that went crazy. Why? Because he's the Joker. That's why. And that's what makes him scary. Like I never like people were like, "Oh yeah, I love Halloween the Curse of Michael Myers because it makes Michael Myers scary." Why? Because he's the pawn of a cult. That totally makes sense. So it's like I don't know how that's scary. Like that does that I know fear is like very subjective, but like I don't know, that's just not scary to me. Like explaining somebody's backstory. Like the fact you don't know what they are is beyond horrifying. And do think it's kind of interesting here how for the Al Ghuls, they go for more of the East Asian uh version, than more like what has become with Ra's al Ghul, where he's more like Arabic, Middle Eastern. So I think that was
I mean, it's
definitely an
also
interesting way to
like you
do it.
could be South Asian, like from the Himalayas, like that.
Yeah,
That's
like
part
that
of it.
too, that too.
Yeah,
But Zhang Jin, I'm gonna look it up because again, I don't want to
yeah.
assume,
I mean,
but
Frida Pinto, like Talia al Ghul, she's definitely she could definitely look like she's
yeah,
from India or Nepal or
yeah.
Pakistan or
So
Bangladesh. Like
Zhang
she,
Jin is
that
Chinese.
fits.
That's what I mean. Like
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of
I mean,
like
they're all kind of
Korean, Japanese,
come together
Chinese.
over
That's what
there.
I was
Yes.
because usually Ra's al Ghul, like
Oh,
Alexander Siddig, is
yeah.
like from Middle East, that kind of thing. So like that's because usually that's what Ra's al Ghul, but I feel like that's interesting how you go for more of like that, Chinese, Japanese, Korean
Right.
sort of like backstory, which is definitely interesting. The thing that I was like, Mina Masood and Scott Adkins.
No, I know.
What?
I mean, well, I
That
guess
was like the main thing.
he missed on the 2 big ones, but he did get a lot of the other character I mean,
Yeah, I
the
will
other
say
ones are not half
it's
bad.
it's a decent casting. I just don't like the Joker
Yeah.
backstory and like the three Joker storyline. I think that was built up way too much and then never like delayed. And then when Jeff Johns finally wrote it, it was like not that great.
Yeah.
So But
Well,
I just wanted to comment on that. I think it's a
yeah.
decent
No,
casting.
it's a good call. It's a good find. We're glad that Peacekeeper left this comment because we do love the fan castings. I mean, there's some most of these actors we did not pitch in that episode of the show, so it's good to kind of get these alternate opinions, like because everybody's opinion matters here. Like it's not just ours. Your opinion matters just as much as ours. So we're glad that you decided to stop by and leave us a comment because it gives us something to talk about, and there's some really good picks here. Maybe not every single pick is good, but there are a few good picks. So let's take a look at the third and last comment what I wanted to feature here on this 100th episode of the show. This one comes from an episode that we did where we were talking
Yeah.
about basically Paradise Lost, which is a prequel series to Wonder Woman that is set to come out at some point, in the future of the DCU, or certainly
Hmm.
part of Chapter One, Gods and Monsters. And we were talking about how it can't be just a discount Game of Thrones, because even though they said it's going to be DC's Game of Thrones, we don't want it to feel like it's a ripoff. Like we don't want it to feel like it's any lesser than what a Game of Thrones was. So
Hmm.
to that end, I want the comment from Jay Kells, who's a regular viewer of the channel, and he watches
Yes,
and comments all the time.
he or she leaves a lot of comments, so thank you for the comments. We appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah,
Um,
we absolutely. And then, they said that I'd like to see Paradise Lost explore the relationship between the Greek gods and the Amazons. Maybe each Amazon tribe has their own god that they worship, and that relationship with their particular god influences their political views and beliefs, which does create a lot of possibilities from a creative standpoint.
yeah.
And then he says, however, they decide to do it, I definitely I want the gods involved, which I think in recent years they've always kind of try to adapt the New 52 iteration of Wonder Woman, where she's basically a god. So I can totally see that happening. Like John, what are your thoughts on this one?
I was going through a lot of his or her comments, and I was like, "Oh, they're leaving a lot of really good comments." But this was the one that really sparked my interest because I'm like, I fucking love this idea. That is such a fucking good idea of like not following, because Game of Thrones was, yeah, it was political heavy, but it was like more like fantasy driven. There was not really like a lot of like, there was religion there, don't get me wrong, but it was more like a medieval Christianity sort of thing, if I know from what little I know of Game of Thrones. So, like, there was that. So, like, something that like really goes like into like the Greek mythology. You're speaking my language. You are speaking my language. I love mythology. That was like one of the things I loved learning about in school. I grew up with the Percy Jackson books. I can't take them down now, but I have them up there. I haven't watched the show yet. I am gonna watch show, even though I've heard mixed things. I have the Percy Jackson ones up here. I have the heroes, the Roman ones. I have the first four books over on my bookshelf over there. I love mythology. It is so just fascinating me. Greek is my favorite. Roman's pretty good. I've gotten into Norse because of like, Thor, so I wanted to learn about that. And then I've also learned about like Egyptian mythology and like Asian like Chinese mythology, like all this. It's so innately fascinating. So I think I would definitely love this. Like you have like the blacksmiths that worship like Hephaestus. You have like more of like maybe like the people that are like near like the ocean. You have them like worshiping Poseidon, or you have like Artemis, like Hunt, like those are like your kind of warriors. Then you have like your politicians and your strategists. They worship like Athena. That would be really fucking cool. And even I'll bring it even further because I think, and this comes from Roy Westerman's Earth 27. Like he built his own DC universe, included all these other franchises. He did like I would recommend looking at that wiki because it is fucking cool. It's like endlessly fascinating. But I think what he wanted to do, he saw like all these different sort of Amazons, you have like Artemis of Bonamigdal, and she's like a redhead, pale white woman. But then you also have like Nubia, who's black, and then you have Yana Flor, who's Brazilian. So it's like, how does that make sense? So it's like, okay, what if there's different Themysciras or Paradise Islands? Because Paradise Islands is like a generic term. Themyscira is, I think, specifically like more Greek, if I believe correctly. So like you have these different Paradise Islands. You have the one in like the one where Wonder Woman is from. You have like the Mediterranean version, and then you can have like Bonamigdal, which is up like in the Isles of like Scotland, and then you could have another one that's like off the coast of like South America, and then you can have another one that's like near like South Africa or like Madagascar or something like that. So I think you like, or like you have like an Australian one, you have one off the coast of like Korea or something like that, or like one that's like in like the freezing cold of like the Russian tundra. Like have all these different sort of Amazons, different tribes worshiping in these different gods, but also like being these different, like how these like their environments and cultures differentiate, and really bringing in all these different mythologies under one roof. That would be really fucking cool. So you have like, obviously it would focus on the Greek version because that's the one we all know, but opening up that like that culture even more to bring in that variety of all of these paradise islands, that would be fucking cool. That would be really awesome, because then you could properly showcase different cultures and how they interact with one another, because like people are, they want to see that diversity and that, representation. So it's like, oh, we
I
could
mean,
show like the
then
Brazilian
you
version, like
really
that would be so cool. That would be so fucking
I
cool.
mean, yeah, because like, now you're really getting into the whole it's not just because it's not just, like, one island with everybody sort of the same. Like, you could still get drama out of that, but, like, to truly get that Game of Thrones level of, interconnectivity and these different houses, if you will, fighting, and, that's what, this kinda leads into, and I love it because then it expands what this Wonder Woman mythology is, and it's, then gonna play into, I'm sure, more of the larger DCU down the road because this is meant to be a prequel. So, yeah, I mean, very, very, good comment. He's brief to the point,
Oh yeah.
but fantastic comment. And anytime a comment sets off the imagination, I think that's always a good thing. Like I know that when we talk about fan castings, John, bring up like ideas, and then my brain starts to like go places, and I'm like, you know what? That's really the reason why we do this because it's about just ideation and then coming up just brainstorming ideas, coming up with new ways to look at these characters and explore these stories that we have all come to let it as we have grown with DC Comics. So yeah, I mean, hey, there's more comments than just these three. These are the ones that we just chose to highlight today. If this is the kind of thing that you like to see on the show, then we're happy to bring those back on in the future. Of course, this was the 100th episode, so we wanted to kind of go in and kind of give back to the folks who are taking part and participating and leaving comments while they're watching all these episodes of DCU Daily. So we started off with the Batman news. I'm a little worried about the Batman Part 2 at this point. John is not, but you let us know in the comments what you think about it. We of course talked about our fandom, our DC fandom, whether it comes through Superman or Batman, The Dark Knight, or Batman and Robin, or Man of Steel, or the Batman the animated series, whichever character, or even if you started on the Marvel side and crossed over, let us know. You can be a fan of both. We definitely do appreciate our Marvel fare as well. But here at DCU Daily, every day we are here Monday through Friday talking about the best in the world of DC. So keep checking back here Monday through Friday. We'll be here all week talking about the latest from the world of DC Comics, whether it's something from James Gunn's Superman, or maybe some more news from the Batman side of things, or maybe something completely unexpected like, hey, Peacemaker Season 2 is coming next year. We were talking about that yesterday. So yeah, come back here, talk to us about that. Leave us a comment down below. Go out there, watch something DC related, and then we'll see you back here next time on DCU Daily.